Hi everybody, this is ACI Course 1, The Principal Teachings of Buddhism. This is Class 8, Developing Bodhicitta. Last class we considered the benefits of developing bodhicitta, such as your good deeds are not only a cause for omniscience and Buddhahood, they're also Mahayana Dharma and the activity of a bodhisattva. We also learned that bodhisattvas were worthy of reverence from people and pleasure beings, and more valuable than a Hinayana Arhat. In addition, Buddhists consider you their child, and bodhisattvas consider you a sibling, so you've got a whole new family once you have bodhicitta. The best perk is going to be that you can become a Buddha in one lifetime, so it puts you on the fast track to Buddhahood. So now that we've considered the benefits of developing bodhicitta, hey, this class we're going to learn how to develop bodhicitta and how to know when you've got it. So at the end of this class, you should understand the 7-step cause and effect method for developing bodhicitta. And you'll know when you've got it. Let's look at where we are in the root text. Tsongkhapa says, "They're swept along on 4 fierce river currents, chained up tight in past deeds, hard to undo, stuffed in a steel cage of grasping self, smothered in the pitch-black ignorance." This part of the root text, with the talk of river currents and a steel cage, always reminds me of Niagara Falls. And here we have a picture of the falls. Now, it's an illegal activity, but people find it an exciting challenge to go over the fall in a barrel, which is sort of like a steel cage. Here is one such adventurer, chained up tight in past deeds, hard to undo, stuffed in a steel cage of grasping self, smothered in the pitch-black ignorance. Yep, all sealed up in that barrel, ready to go over the falls. Most of us on the planet are like this. We're stuffed into a barrel and then we're tossed into the Niagara Falls Rapids, which we see in front of us here. And there we're swept along on 4 fierce river currents, until finally we are plunged down the falls to the rocks below and certain doom. Now, this is a good meditation to understand how powerless we are, especially since we don't really know what is going on. We're in this barrel, it's dark, we have no idea what's going on, and we can't, because we're trapped in that steel barrel, which is really our karma that's keeping us trapped in there. We have no way to affect what's going on either. Tsongkhapa continues, "In a limitless round they're born, and in their births are tortured by 3 sufferings without a break. Think how your mothers feel. Think of what's happening to them. Try to develop this highest wish." So again, we're looking at there, and that's referring to everyone, and really including ourselves. So we're all born and tortured by the 3 sufferings without a break. And the 3 sufferings we went over in Class 6, they are the suffering of suffering, which is just plain old painful feelings, whether that pain be physical or emotional. The second suffering is the suffering of change, which is the pain and loss we experience when something ends, something pleasant ends in particular. And the last suffering is all-pervading suffering, which is the pain of having a body that ages, gets sick, and dies. This pain is pervasive since it starts as soon as we are conceived. And as long as we're in samsara, we will have these 3 sufferings. Now, the second part of this section of the root text is, think how your mothers feel. Think of what's happening to them. Try to develop the highest wish. This section is a code for the 7-step method for developing bodhicitta. That line about mothers is one of the key parts of that method. So he's kind of referring to that. We know that the highest wish is going to be bodhicitta, so he's alluding to that here. There are 2 classic methods for developing bodhicitta. One is exchanging self with others, and the other is the 7-step cause and effect instruction, which we'll learn today. Exchanging self with others is explained in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life by Master Shantideva, which is the topic of ACI Course 10, 11, and 12. And it's really a practice in working for the happiness of others first. So instead of considering self, you kind of consider other people first and act in their behalf. So you kind of exchange yourself with others in that way. You look at them as, what would I do if I was them? Before you look at what I'm going to do for myself. The 7-step cause and effect instruction is the process that is explained in the text here by Babunka Rinpoche, and we're going to go over that next. This method is based on recognizing every other being as your mother. Now, this method was developed in a land where reincarnation and future and past lives was just an accepted belief. If you share the belief that you've had past lives, then you're ready to go. If not, then we're going to need to talk about that possibility a little bit before we can actually do the 7-step cause and effect method. So ACI Course 4 is devoted to proving future lives, but we will introduce the key points here. So our quick proof starts with recognizing that the mind is different from physical stuff. The mind is made of mental stuff, and mental stuff is described as being invisible and aware. People that have dissociated or left their body will find this really easy to accept. Think for a moment, the rest of us can think for a moment about your fridge back home and what's sitting on the top shelf. So your mind just left its awareness of your body and went to the fridge. Although there seems to be an association between the mind, which is mental stuff, and the brain, which is physical stuff, they are not the same thing. The mind is mental stuff, the brain is physical stuff. Now, if you don't believe they're different, that's okay. Just let it cook a while. Sit with it, meditate on it. For this and then we'll do ACI Course 4, we'll talk a little bit more about it. But for this presentation, I'm going to ask you to act as if you do realize that the mind is made of different stuff than physical stuff. Now that we know that mind is different from the body, let's consider how the mind works. It is easy to accept that everything comes from something similar and that came just before. If we think about the acorn and the oak tree, we realize that the acorn, looks pretty dissimilar now, but if we go back and slowly go through the process, the acorn and then the acorn sprouting and the acorn sprout growing, and then there's a little bit of a twig there, and then a little bit bigger, and then finally a bigger tree, and then a huge tree, we see that at each moment what comes before it is pretty similar to what comes next. And then eventually the slow bits of changes, we end up with something that actually seems a little bit dissimilar. So what we're saying here is that the mind of the current moment is preceded by the mind of the moment before, and so on and so on. My current mind didn't come from what I ate for breakfast. It came from the thoughts of the previous moment. So it didn't come from something physical, it came from another moment of mind. That was fairly similar. Some meditators can take this to an extreme and can actually follow each moment of the mind back, and then back to birth, and then to previous lives. I'm not that good of a meditator, but I do know of a woman that used this method to learn about her past lives. The real question that leads to the proof of past lives is, where did your mind come from at the moment of conception, right? It didn't come from your parents' egg and sperm, since they are physical things, and you can't get a mental thing from a physical thing. So it must have come from a previous mind, which happened to be your same mind. Another one, you'll need to maybe cook a little bit. In Buddhism, we believe that the mind continues on as a stream since beginningless time. So if you keep going back, you'll keep finding more mind, and apparently there's no beginning. I'm not sure about the beginningless time thing, but I certainly makes sense to me that each moment of mind was preceded by a moment of mind, and that when my body dies, my mind will go on in the future the same way. So I can see it's like there's no reason for it to end per se. This allows me to realize, well, if my mind's been continuing on forever, basically, then I must have had countless physical incarnations. We have been born a zillion times. Now, this is the key bit of knowledge that we need to be able to do the 7-step practice. We have to have a belief that, that we have been born over and over and over again, that the mind has continued on in a stream, and is kind of like stuck. It's kind of made a mistake. It got stuck in samsara, And the whole plan is to get us out of samsara and get everybody else out of samsara so we're not stuck here anymore. This leads us to our preliminary practice. Before we can use the 7-step process for developing bodhicitta, we need to develop neutrality. We do this by realizing that we have been born countless times, which follows from the proof we just did. With this, if we've been born countless times, then our relationship to other people has taken all different kinds of roles many times. So our best friend probably has been our enemy before, and our enemy has probably been our best friend countless times. And if you can even just think of this one lifetime, have you had a friend that you're no longer friends with? Maybe they didn't become an enemy, but you're no longer friends with, and vice versa. Have you had an enemy that somehow became your friend? And I've had situations both ways, where someone I didn't like became a friend, and when someone I did like became someone I didn't like anymore. So if that can happen in a lifetime, then certainly over zillions of lifetimes, my best friend has been my enemy, and my enemy has been my best friend countless times. We've probably killed each other countless times. We've probably saved each other's life countless times, and so forth. The next step in this is going to be realizing that all living beings are equal in that we all want to be happy. We all want to be happy, and we all want to avoid being uncomfortable or and avoid discomfort. So those are universals. We might have different strategies. We might have different things that we want. We might put a greater value on what type of level of comfort we want. But for the most part, all of us wouldn't mind being in a Buddha paradise. That would not be a problem. And then to re-emphasize all beings are equal and that they have all been our friend at some point. So that gets us to a place of neutrality. So when we're going around, we need to look at the fly that's buzzing around my head, and I need to realize that that living being has been my friend countless times. It just wants to find a place to land and wants some good stuff to eat, and it doesn't want to get hurt, right? It's got the same basic wants that I have, as well as the cashier at the store. She just wants to be happy. She just wants to avoid being uncomfortable. And, this person's probably been my friend. I don't know them now, but they've probably been my friend before. And they probably helped me out. So this gives us a practice of neutrality when we can actually see people, no matter how much we like or dislike them this lifetime, as, a changing being that, we'll fall in and out of like with. So step 1 of the 7-step process is recognizing all beings as one's mother. This follows directly from our meditation on the fact that we have all played every role. We've all been everybody's mother, we've been a daughter, we've been a brother, we've been a friend, we've been an enemy, we've been a father, we've been a lover, we've killed people, we've saved people. So from that, we realize, okay, everybody's been my mother, and that's an important realization for this process to work. So you want to contemplate this until you realize, you're really certain that all beings have been your mother countless times. I do this step by whenever I see a being, especially animals and flying insects, which used to have a tendency to annoy me. I say, "Hi, Mom." It started as a game for me. I don't really have any proof that they weren't my mother in a past life, so why not? It's kind of fun exposing them to see their disguise. So I'll go around and it's like, "Hey, hi, Mom," and I'll let them know, "You're really annoying me right now," especially those flying insects. But so I'm getting to that place where I'm really recognizing them all as being my mother. At least I'm acting as if they are, in the sense that I'll say, "Hi, Mom," to them. The second step is to feel gratitude for their kindness. And in order to get this, you're going to need to contemplate all the good things that a mother does for a child and begin to develop this feeling. So you recognize everybody's your mother, but you want to take it the next step. You want to start thinking about what mothers do. So if you didn't have the perfect mother, that's fine. This will still work. Think about what a mother does. She gave you this precious human life. If there was nothing else, if your mother disappeared or abused you after that, that's enough. Your thoughts about how precious the human life is, how rare it is to get it. You've done that kind of work with meditations in the renunciation section. Should really put you in the place of really being able to appreciate, hey, that's good enough. She was the vessel that got me here, and from this place I can become a Buddha in one lifetime. She carried you in the womb for 9 months. Not necessarily a comfortable thing. Usually that brings on a few aches and pains. She had pain and suffering when you were born. So that's enough right there. Even if it stops right there and she never does another thing for you, she's already done an incredible gift. And that's just contemplating that, how precious that is to have someone give birth to you. Think about how valuable your birth is, and that she helped with that process. Then beyond that, she devoted many hours taking care of you. Feeding, cleaning your shit, your throw up. Even if she was nasty again, all those kinds of things, making sure you had enough food, making sure you were warm, could sleep, valuable, incredibly valuable. Again, if your personal experience is with a mother that wasn't present or wasn't, you can think of your caretaker who did take care of you, and just consider mother energy, I guess. You can consider how all mothers, human, animal, care for their young. Just visualize that whole idea of mothering. So if you don't have warm feelings for your mother, think of someone that cared for you and loved you to develop the correct feeling. If you can't even think of a human, think of the love a divine being has for you, or perhaps even think of a different lifetime. And I do that too. I think about, okay, that fly was actually probably the perfect mother, when I lived in a palace with, and we had all these wonderful things, and circumstances were different, so my mother could be more available. Then, think of that. Think of an idealized mother. Because every being has been your mother, so one of these might have been like the perfect mother, and focus on that. And if humans don't work for you, think about animals. If you've seen good mothering in animals, then think about them. Think about a lifetime when you were an animal and your animal mother took care of you. So the idea is to contemplate all the good things that a mother does for a child, and begin to develop a feeling of gratitude for this kindness that everyone has given to you when they were your mother. What follows naturally from that is going to be a wish to repay their kindness. So this is the third step. It's a natural outgrowth of recognizing and appreciating what all beings have done for us when they were our mother. In this step, we affirm our realization that they are suffering and need help. And our mind naturally begins to search for ways to repay them. So we're wishing to repay them. We're like, it's natural. As soon as you say, wow, look at all this stuff I got. Oh, what can I do to give back to this person who's helped me? Which then leads us to the fourth step, which is a sweet love for all beings. Now here we have the desire to repay their kindness specifically by making them happy. This fourth step is a natural result of the first 4 steps. And you'll need to know that for the homework. That step 2 follows step 1, step 3 follows step 2, and step 4 is the result of steps 1, 2, and 3 together. In this step, you really begin to love each being as your child. And as your child, you want to give them things. So you've been cultivating this love to your mother, but when we get to step 4, it's easier to explain it as like the love you feel for a child. It's that intense, kind of almost obsessive, irrational love that you want to give them things. You want to get them the best play set, and they're going to have the best toys and all the stuff you didn't have, and the best schools, and so you want to give to them. You want to give them food, you want to give them clothes, shelter, any of the temporary pleasures, and ultimately, you want to put them in a supreme state of happiness. In this case, what we're talking about love, it's really defined as a feeling and almost an obsession to make someone happy. It's obsession. It's right there. You want to do it. This state arises naturally from the first 3 steps. It is experienced as seeing all living beings as beautiful and looking upon them as a beloved child. So that's why it's called beautiful, loving kindness. So follows step 4 is step 5. which is great compassion. Now consider for a moment that you are at a funeral or a wake, and the mother of the dead child is crying uncontrollably. Would it make sense to offer her a cookie? No. She would not be able to appreciate a cookie, which is something that usually would cheer people up, even if it's her favorite cookie. She's not going to be able to appreciate it until her suffering is removed. Now between steps 4, which is you wanting to give people, everything to make them happy, and step 5, you realize that giving beings things to make them happy cannot be received, cannot be appreciated if they are still suffering. So here we get to a place that we desire that all beings are free from suffering first. And great compassion is the desire to remove the suffering from all beings. Underlying all of this is that state of mind where we're seeing all living beings as our own beloved children. So we're seeing them as precious, something that we love incredibly, and we don't want to see them suffer. The 6th step is an extraordinary form of personal responsibility that arises because we hold each living being as special to us. Now here we resolve to personally help, even if no one else helps. It is natural that if our mother or child was in trouble, we would immediately act to help them and not wait for someone else to come to the rescue. Consider, your precious child falls into a fire pit. Would you wait for someone to get them out, or would you just jump right in and rescue them? You'd jump right in. You wouldn't look around. There'd be no hesitation. You'd throw them out. You wouldn't, you'd be burning, and that would be it, So this is the kind of feeling you've got at this point. At this point, you are taking personal responsibility for everyone. You don't care about social norms. You don't care, do I need to do this? You're not sluggish. You're like, you totally want to do it. Because these people have been your mother. They've given you everything, and it's all you want to do. And you don't look around for help, and you immediately respond to help everyone. At the final step, you realize that reaching total enlightenment is the best way to help everyone and their suffering. So you resolve to reach total enlightenment to help everyone else reach this blissful state too. Bodhicitta, which is step 7, is a result of the beautiful loving kindness, great compassion, and the extraordinary form of personal responsibilities that are steps 4, 5, and 6. The realization of true bodhicitta can be felt physically as a shaft of life leaving one's heart chakra and connecting to every living being. Now, prior to realizing true bodhicitta, one can develop what is called sugarcane bodhicitta, which has the outward appearance of bodhicitta, but not the depth. It's sweet, but not as sweet as the real thing. Bodhicitta, true bodhicitta, changes the mind and cannot be lost. Even when one becomes angry, the anger is tempered and infused with bodhicitta. All activities are those of the bodhisattva. May you realize bodhicitta now. In summary, the 7-step cause and effect method, where first you must develop a feeling of neutrality towards all beings. So that's our preliminary stage. Then, step 1, recognizing all beings as one's mother. And this is brought about by believing that we've been born countless times and that we've played all different roles. So all beings could quite possibly have been our mother. Then we cultivate an understanding of what she gave us as a mother, and we feel gratitude to all beings for their kindness. Naturally, that leads us to wish to repay their kindness. And first of all, we desire that they're happy, so we want to repay their kindness by giving them things. Then we realize, well, that's not going to be enough, so we want to repay their kindness by removing their sorrow, so that then they can really receive the things we're giving them. Finally, we kind of say, wait, this is so important. We've developed such a strength of this feeling that we want to personally help everyone, even if no one else helps. And that leads us to realizing that, hey, the only way we can really help is if we become a Buddha. Then we can really have the omniscience that we need to help everybody. And so our desire is to become a Buddha to benefit all beings. So in step 4 and 5, the emphasis again with 4, we're calling it loving kindness towards all beings, but think about it in terms of trying to give people things. And in step 5, we're taking things away. So it's almost like a tonglen, right, where we're giving and receiving. So in this case, our first impulse is to give them all the good things, and then we realize that, unless we take away their suffering, they're not going to be able to really receive the good things. So then we start taking away their suffering first. So that concludes class 8. Our homework is going to be the questions. I think you have all the information you need to be successful at those. The memorization assignment is memorizing the 4th verse of the 3 principal paths, which goes, leisure and fortune are hard to find, life's not long. Think of it constantly. Stop desire for this life. Think over and over how deeds and their fruit never fail, and the cycle suffering. Stop desire for the future. Then your meditation assignment will be to do an analytical meditation on the 7 steps for developing the wish for enlightenment. And remember to record the date and time of your meditation. Next class, we're going to go into what correct view. In fact, the last 2 classes are on correct view of emptiness. And in particular, next class we'll be talking about the 4 ancient schools of India. So we'll talk a little bit about how each of the schools views emptiness. We've just done an incredible goodness by studying bodhichitta. So let's dedicate this virtue to the benefit of all sentient beings. May they complete the collection of merit and wisdom and gain the 2 bodies that merit and wisdom bring. Bless you.